Mandalorian Season 3 is finally underway. I can't believe it, guys. It's finally here. We've started. Episode 1 was more of a setup episode more than anything else. And while we were pretty much excited and ecstatic to see Grogu and Din Djarin again back into the fold, I have to say that one part in particular made all the fans, including myself when I first saw it, kind of cringe a little bit, seeing that Star Wars is constantly doing this again and again. This is the revival of what we know as a dead character. At this point, in fact, this character was blown to bits standing on a lava pool. Of course, we're talking about IG-11. This is nothing new, of course. Maul was cut in half and came back. Palpatine was literally thrown into the depths of the Death Star, exploded, and then came back as a clone. So IG-11 coming back from that, nothing new, but we have to revise again everything that happened because IG-11, contrary to Maul, Palpatine, and every other character that got revived in Star Wars, IG-11 specifically had a mechanism put in by its manufacturer that it has to self-destruct so that it cannot be reassembled back. But this yet again failed. As we saw in yesterday's episode, its torso and right arm was still intact, although kind of burned up, used as a statue as a symbol of Navarro's liberation from the Imperial remnant. It didn't take long for Din Djarin to also reactivate him, albeit with a faulty memory. So let's explain everything in detail, because I was extremely puzzled by this. Why would the writers choose to negate the fact that he was completely blown up just so that he could serve a story for Din Djarin? Is nothing sacred? Do characters ever get to sacrifice themselves or die? Because this is what IG-11 did. He sacrificed himself. We have to go back and talk about IG-11 more specifically, because as we know by IG-88 and now IG-11, these were masculine programmed IG assassin droids. They were specifically assassin droids, and IG-11 was a bounty hunter similar to IG-88. What you also have to know is that IG-11 had a reinforced body that was able to withstand sustained turret fire without suffering significant damage. We saw this with IG-11. He was extremely advantageous in the battlefield. He could engage multiple targets at once. He could pilot a speeder bike while using 2 blasters. However, what many forget prior to his self-destruction is that in the first episode alone, it is Din Djarin who points a blaster at IG-11's head and blows it up. Right from the jump, IG-11 was destroyed, was deactivated by that blast. Quill then reactivated him and made him into a nurse droid who is capable of making meals, making tea, essentially looking after Quill, who was older in age. Once Grogu was put into his care, this is where our storyline basically starts. You see, IG-11 was armed with 2 blasters, an E-11 medium blaster rifle and a DLT-20A blaster rifle. But in addition to these blasters, what many did not know is that IG-11 and other IG units were built with a detonator inside of his chest as a self-destruct mechanism by their own manufacturer. This was for the sheer fact that they wanted to prevent this design from being stolen or copied. The last time we see IG-11, he is in a pool of lava, his legs getting disintegrated. He is surrounded by stormtroopers, and he activates his self-destruct mechanism to prevent his secrets from falling into the wrong hands, in this fact, the Empire. And so clearly by that episode and by this recording, he gets blown up and blows up everybody with him. Unfortunately, it seems that the self-destruct mechanism did not quite do the job. In fact, if you look closer at the remains of IG-11, you'll see the only parts that were destroyed were his legs and his part of his left arm. This is not exactly a flawless self-destruct mechanism, if you ask me, especially coming from such a reputable company that makes IG assassin droids. They were specifically worried that somebody would copy their design. This is why it was put in. So how is this possible? How does IG-11 get shot in the head, revived, then gets blown to smithereens while standing on a lava, and the head and the torso, the arm were still recoverable, as Grief Karga says so himself. They glued him back together from what they could recover. Again, I'm gonna go back to other characters that were revived. You might say, what's the big deal? This happens constantly in Star Wars. But the truth of the matter is that we haven't seen anything quite like this. If you tell me that Palpatine came back, so what's the big deal? That is a different version of Palpatine. Granted, Maul is the one that is in the fringes of how he came back. He was essentially cut in half, but still was able to live. But we all saw IG-11 get blown to smithereens. So, judging by the fact also that real technology in our world, self-destruct mechanisms are taken very, very seriously, especially by the military, who does not want equipment to fall into the wrong hands. The purpose of a self-destruct is pretty simple. Destroy the device to prevent sensitive information from falling into the enemy's hands so that he could take advantage. So why does this matter? Well, for starters, it's a reminder that even the most advanced technology in Star Wars has its flaws. IG units are pretty much durable. IG units, as much as the manufacturer wanted this self-destruct mechanism to work, it had its flaws. As we talked about earlier, IG units were able to withstand turret fire. This gives you an indication that they're pretty durable and strong. Their metal is close to indestructible. It's a cautionary tale about relying too heavily on self-destruct mechanisms as a fail-safe method, because as you can see, they can be effective in certain situations, but it's not a guaranteed solution. Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, and the writers essentially wanted to bring back IG-11 so that it could serve Din Djarin on Mandalore. Because the surface is lethal or radioactive, a droid that Din Djarin trusts can go first and then they could follow suit. I understand what they were trying to do. It's just become tedious that characters simply don't die in Star Wars. I feel for IG-11 especially because it was a great moment. He sacrificed himself to keep Grogu safe. It's clear that the thermal detonator that activated in his chest was not able to pulverize everything from IG-11, because Grief Karga says during that talk with Mando that they were able to salvage and piece together what they could. It seems like they pieced a lot, especially the most important and vital part, his head, his torso, and one of his arms. The others could easily be fixed, meaning an arm and 2 legs. But for many fans out there who are even more outraged, I'll give the writers one out here. They have a point when it comes to the memory. While it doesn't make sense even for me that it was salvaged up until this point, essentially he was completely unharmed, meaning IG-11 from the self-destruct, its memory is completely faulty, and that's what the episode kind of shows, that even when Din Djarin tries to reactivate him, IG reverts back to his old memory of a bounty hunter and he goes after Grogu, the bounty that he was tasked on getting. So essentially this shows that while it wasn't completely pulverized or destroyed, IG-11's memory, the manufacturer did its job because the self-destruct mechanism essentially destroyed IG-11's memory. This is what matters in the end, and Din now needs a new completely memory chip to start fresh, start anew with IG-11. It's going to be interesting to be a fish out of water character, IG-11 falling in love with Grogu all over again. These stories do have its ups and downs, but at moments like this where I kind of miss the Andor series, where it did not have any of these shenanigans. Andor was so serious that I completely loved it, and I want Star Wars to go that direction more, I think. But it's going to be interesting to see what follows next. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed, leave a thumbs up down below, subscribe for dailies. Now you have an awesome day, Star Wars fans. I'll see you in the next video, and may the Force be with you. Until then.